Hello, tarot friends. This is Ultraviolet Morgan, and welcome to part 3 of the World Mythology series from the Oxford Companion to World Mythology by David Leeming. And this installment is going to be about the goddess. And we'll begin the reading. Goddess. It seems likely that our earliest sense of the numinous would have been expressed in a female metaphor reflecting the rhythms of nature. Women give birth, and so does Earth. So Earth logically became Earth Mother, and then Mother Goddess, and Great Mother. Paleolithic evidence, articulated by Maria Gamboudas and many others, gives strong support to the scenario to which the importance and perhaps even dominance of this early female deity. The ancient peoples of Anatolia, for instance, clearly worshipped a large birthing mother as goddess, as indicated by the artifacts excavated in places such as Hasalar and Catalhayek. Deities tend to reflect the political and social realities of those who depict them. Whether or not dominant goddesses in several forms presided over prehistoric, Paleolithic, and early Neolithic matriarchies is unclear. We do know that the original great goddess's descendants play a significant role in a deity biography of sorts that involves God and gender and the rise of the male god to prominence at her expense, and the very possibly parallels the movement from a male-centered agricultural society from a female-centered agricultural society to a male-based warrior society. Mythic evidence of the ancient Great Mother is scarce, due primarily to the non-existence of writing. There are indications, however, in the Bronze Age cuneiforms of the Bronze Age cuneiform script of the Sumerians of a goddess who has retained much of the power of the hypothetical earlier figure. This goddess, Inanna, later Ishtar, descends to the underworld to confront the ravages of death in the form of her sister. It is she who performs the sacred marriage love act, the fertility ritual, on which the earth's annual rebirth depends. Who will plow my high fields? She sings. Who will plow my wet ground? It is her shepherd king lover Dumaz, who provides this service. The seed bearer who molded me with his fine hands irrigated my womb. This fragmented myth suggests that Dumuzi is a sacrificial king, the one who must die for the good of all, the seed that must be planted. As such, he is a mythical companion of the Egyptians Osiris, and much later Christian Jesus, who is meant to mention only two of many dying gods. In the Dumuzi myth, Inanna has already entered the process in which the goddess will lose power to the god. Like Isis in Egypt, which I think I got here. Like Isis in Egypt and Cybele in Phrygia, Anatolia, she is a transitional figure who has moved from dominance to a position in which she will become primarily a fertility goddess dependent on the male seed. Other remnants of the ancient mother can be found in various societies that retain certain Neolithic lifestyle characteristics or have given them up only relatively recently. The native North American Okanaga people of Washington State think of the earth animalistically as the Old One, a female figure whose flesh is in the soil, whose hair is plant life, whose bones are rocks, and whose breath is the wind. Which is actually how I have been thinking of the earth for a good many of years now. We live on and take sustenance from her body, and we are at her mercy. When she moves, for instance, there is an earthquake. A similar belief surrounds the goddess Kunapipi among the Aboriginal people of the Arnhem Land in Australia. The pre-Aryan Indus Valley culture seems... Do I have... No. Okay. The pre... Sorry, folks, I lost my place. The pre-Aryan Indus Valley culture seems likely to have been presided over by a strong goddess whose descendants are the still powerful Hindu Devi goddess. Oh, it is time to turn the page. Her turn. Who nevertheless is typically subservient to her husband, usually the god Shiva. Devi wears many masks: Ma, the eternal mother; Durga, the terrifying monster slayer; Parvati, the clever nurturing daughter of the Himalayas, wife of the yogic Shiva; and Kali, whose bloody fangs and death dance celebrate the necessary cycles of life. The eternal destruction and reconstruction, the breathing of the universe. Kali's black skin, like the skin of the later Black Madonnas of Italy, Mexico, Poland, and Chartres, is the dark fertile soil, the flesh of earth itself. The Yorubu Oya is another such figure, she of the insatiable vagina, the purifying wind, as is this is not her, but it represented sort of sexuality to me, so and the female reproductive organs or pleasure organs, as it may be. And then of course I lost my place. And it is the frightening Polynesian volcano goddess Pele. The role of the goddess deteriorates with the invasion of so-called Indo-Europeans or Aryans into the Near and Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, and Europe during the Bronze Age, circa 3500 to 1000 BCE to 10,000 BCE, 1000 BCE. These invaders were warriors whose primary deities were almost certainly war gods associated with the sky rather than the earth, with conquest rather than nurturing, with light rather than mystery, and with stern fatherhood rather than loving motherhood. The ancient pre-Aryan goddesses had taken their power from the earth rather than from the heavens. With the emergence of cities, the domestication of animals, and the development of technology of war, male power took precedence over female birth-giving mystery. Mystery cults, of course, continued down through the centuries, and fertility rituals were important, as indicated by the continuing myths of Ishtar. Do I have Ishtar? Continuing myths of Ishtar, Isis, Cybele, and others, but fertility goddesses increasingly came under the control of male gods. Demeter and Persephone in Greece were strong, but when Persephone was abducted by the underworld god Hades, and Demeter removed her blessing from the land. Abducted by the underworld god Hades, and Demeter removed her blessing from the land, causing it to wither. It was the all-powerful father Zeus who mediated the argument, and in the compromise he arranged, Hades was able to retain his victim as his wife, although she was allowed to return to her mother for part of the year. Just because we're talking about the Greeks, I will move into Diana. In some cases, the goddess, clearly reflecting a passive male view, becomes the nagging wife who restricts her husband's freedom. The famous Zeus-Hera relationship reflects this syndrome, as do aspects of the Shiva-Parvati relationship in India. In many cases, the great goddess seems to fade away altogether, as in the case of the Celtic mother goddess Danu in Ireland. I did have a Celtic goddess, but not that one. Oh. Or the Greek Earth Mother Gaia, about whom we hear only fragmented stories. In still other cases, goddesses are masculinized or turned into dangerous seducers whose sexuality undermines male power. The well-armed Greek Athena is an example of the former, as is the virgin huntress Artemis, who was an earlier incarnation in the Asia Minor, had been the fertility goddess of many breasts. Aphrodite is also Diana. Aphrodite is an example of the latter. In the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh, the male-female struggle and the superiority of the male are signaled when Gilgamesh refuses the sexual advances of the goddess Inanna Ishtar, not wishing to fall into the femme fatale trap that destroys later heroes, such as the shorn and thus emasculated Samson of the Bible, whose destructive temptress is Delilah. A case similar to that of the Gilgamesh-Ishtar conflict is that of the Irish hero Cuchulainn, who refuses the advances and offers of help from the goddess Morrigan. I'm just gonna move to, these are not specifically mentioned, I don't believe, but I'm just gonna show some of the other goddesses that I have. Claiming that as a male warrior he has no need of a woman's assistance, even that of a goddess. There is a clear belief in many of the post-Aryan invasion stories that the presence of women and of sexuality can only undermine the strength and dominance of men. The Athabascan peoples of Native America tell the tale of the vagina girls, walking vaginas lined with teeth that devour men. It takes a great hero or man-god to tame these beings for proper male use by detoothing them. Well, in all of these myths, the female is dangerous because she is desirable. Therefore, the body is dangerous, something to be despised. The flesh is weak, and in religious traditions, the intangible soul becomes an all-important counterweight. Myths such as those of Pandora, who, because of female weakness of curiosity, release all manner of evil into the world from her box, and Eve, who leads Adam astray with the forbidden fruit, are archetypal relatives of seducers like Ishtar and Morgan, even though their names clearly suggest earlier, more positive functions. Eve's name connotes motherhood in a Mesopotamian form, corroborated by the Indo-European etymology of Aiva Devi Ma. She is a creatrix, the mother of all. The mother of all life, and the consort of the serpent himself, a version of that ancient god, the often ithophalic, genital-covered trickster who changes shape at will and is at least in part a metaphor for the natural human appetites necessary for life. The trickster has many embodiments: the clever Hermes in Greece, the spider Ananth in Africa, and Coyote, the raven of North America are just a few. As the serpent, the trickster is often the companion of female deities, such as the great goddess of second millennium Crete, who was depicted holding snakes aloft, and the Aztec mother Cotolque, who was adorned with the heads of serpents. Under the new patriarchal gods, women became objects of conquest and their reproductive and sexual vehicles to be owned. The cults of virginity emerged as a means of ensuring individual male ownership. Important objects of war were the ravishing of the city walls and of the maiden within. In ancient Sumer, rape had been punishable by death. Later, Semitic peoples in the Fertile Crescent executed married women who were raped. The old once sacred mysteries of womanhood were mythologically transformed into negative entities like harpies, sirens, and witches. The second millennium Babylonian creation story, the Enum Elish, is a landmark in the deterioration of goddess power. In that story, we are told that in the land where Inanna once reigned, the god Marduk became dominant, coming fully to power precisely by defeating and destroying Tiamat, the primeval mother of the waters. Now a dangerous and mysterious monster. With a horrid, venom-filled brood. So too was the goddess Ganga, subdued by Shiva in India, and the dragon serpent Python by Apollo, the god of light, in Greece. The sky god, now free of the earth's goddess, was able to create the world, often ex nihilo, in his role as king of the universe. Eventually, he took form among the Semites of the Middle East as Abraham's tribal god, as Yahweh, and later as God and Allah, deities who had no female consorts. I see. They don't need her anymore, so they believe. For indications of the return of the goddess to at least something in her earliest position, we might look to the Christian myth of the Virgin Mary and the current renewed interest in the Earth's ecology, represented by the ancient Gaia and the scientific Gaia hypotheses. And of course, these days, we also have plenty of goddess reconstructionists or earth worshippers. Great Mother, a form of the goddess who takes many forms in world mythology. Great Mother Magna Mater in Rome was a title often applied specifically to Sibyl, the great fertility goddess of Anatolian Phrygia. So there you have the Oxford Companion to World Mythology, the Goddess. Thank you for joining me again, tarot friends, and until next time, please like, subscribe, and comment, and come and see us again soon.